Hi guys. Today is the first day of putting together the set of videos for the board game tournament. This is to explain an overview of the next game that we're going to be participating in, as well as going through the actual rules. This way, anyone can watch these videos on Facebook, catch up when they have some free time, go back if they had some questions. This way, when we do get together, we can jump right into it and save that half an hour to an hour going through everything. So hopefully this works out. Now, the first game that we are going to play is Descent: Journeys into the Dark. This is one of my favorite games that I currently have. It's set in the Roombound universe. Now, Fantasy Flight puts this out, and they have many games set in the Roombound universe. And what's really cool is all the bad guys, and especially the heroes, carry over into those games, which makes it really appealing to me, and of course collecting them all. Now normally there are 4 heroes versus an overlord, so one person would be the bad guy, just like Mansion of Madness, or an older version called Hero Quest, which was one of my favorite games growing up. You have like a campaign, you go through missions by missions to try and beat this. There's like an entire campaign book, and then whoever wins the last mission, hero, overlord, is the overall winner. We're not doing that. We're doing an actual full co-op version of this game. Fantasy Flight has put 3 of these little modules out. I have not played the second one yet, so I'm very interested in going through this. So both teams now are going to go through this dungeon, the same exact dungeon. I'm going to keep the cards the same exact way, keep the items the same. The only thing that's going to be different is our choices and what characters we pick. This one is called Nature's IRE. No matter how I pronounce it, I'm sure Gabe or Ricky will tell me I'm pronouncing it wrong. But there's 3 levels in this dungeon. As we go through each level, if you complete the final level in the third level of the dungeon, you win. Good luck getting there. I know the first one's pretty tough. How you lose in this game is you follow this tracker. The top starts with a fate. It's basically like a time limit. The longer you take, the more turns you go, this fate will drop down. And at the bottom, there's a doom tracker. So when you don't complete missions or you fail them horribly, the doom tracker goes up. When the 2 counters meet, game over. So I'm going to clear a warrior right here. Okay, this is Sir Vladimir. Okay. Now there's a few different things on the card, as you can see. This right here is their movement. So when we get into the actual movement rules, they can move 4 movement points. His health is 12, and that is kept track with these little tokens right here. Whenever you take damage, put these on. When you get hit with 12 health, then he is knocked out. 3 stamina. Stamina is used for a lot of things, either special abilities or to make him move a little bit further on his turn. And right here, this is his defense die. Okay. Quickly, we'll talk about defense dice. There's 3 different colors. We got bronze, silver, and black, and they have these little shields on them. The more shields that you roll, the better. That's how much damage you're actually going to be able to block. So bronze is the worst. There's a lot of blanks on here. Silver is the standard, and a lot of characters, they do start with that silver die. Okay. Bottom left-hand side of the card, there's these 4 little attributes that you may roll, especially in the campaign, the co-op campaign that we're going to be playing. We have to take a lot of tests. So let's see if we can take a look here. There's this sunburst, which could be luck. I think it's luck. Your strength, how strong he is. Book is like your lore. And I think that's your wisdom. So he's really not that wise. Now, whenever you're called to make one of these tests, you have to roll a black and a silver die. You roll them together, and the number of shields that you roll, you need to get that or lower. So I scored a 3. So say I was testing my strength, I would pass. I got a 3. But if I rolled a 4 for a strength test, I would have failed, and it's come to whatever consequences. The last 2 things on the card is their hero ability in the top right. So for this guy, once per turn after dice are rolled, you may suffer 1 stamina to add 1 surge to your attack roll. So those surges are used when they attack to do special powers, which we will get into. So he can always suffer strain, which he has 3 of, to add a little bit more to his power. The last thing you want to take note of is their heroic feat. So now he can use an action to suffer any amount of damage an adjacent hero would suffer. Suffer any amount of damage, an adjacent hero recovers that amount of damage. Okay, I read that totally wrong. So he can take damage and you can heal somebody. Now, whenever you do a heroic feat, you can only do it once per game. So you would only be able to do this once, and then you flip him over to the other side, and as you can see, it's no longer there. Now, once you pick your character, okay, each person is going to decide if they want to be the warrior, the healer, the mage, or the archer. Like I said, the rogue. And once that happens, you're going to be dealt 3 specific heroes. From there, you're going to select one of those heroes. Okay. Now, whenever you do pick your healer or your class, each class is then going to come with 2 types. Now, again, the game has maybe about 8 of these per class, but for our game, I already randomly chose what 3 characters we're going to play and what 2 classes they have available. So for this warrior, you can either be the champion or the berserker. Now, when you take a look at this deck, let's say we went with the champion, you actually start the game with some equipment. So the champion right here starts the game with the worn greatsword. Okay, this shows how much damage is done on the card whenever you roll, how many hands you're going to need, and you get this special little trinket, which again we'll get into. But just so you're going to pick either the champion or the berserker. Now in this deck, these are all of your basically your masteries that you get throughout the game. One of these cards is not going to have any experience points. Okay, that's the one you start the game with. All the other cards show you how much it costs, how much experience it's going to cost for you to purchase this. We start the co-op campaign with 1 extra experience. So you can buy right away another one of these cards that costs 1, or you can save it for the future. Now I know we get experience throughout the campaign when we beat each one of the levels. I believe that's when you get it. Again, I don't want to read into it ahead of time. I kind of want it to be a surprise. But I remember the first time we played, whenever you beat one of those dungeon levels, you got an extra experience, and that's when you can upgrade and spend right away. So you're probably going to get, my guess is another 2 experience as you go throughout the game. Now there are certain powers in here that are, like, let's take a look here. This is the champion, like I said. So each time you would defeat a monster with an attack with a melee weapon, you gain 1 Valor. So the champion gets these special little Valor tokens. Okay, and before rolling his attack die, a hero may spend 1 Valor to add an extra damage to his attack results. Limit once per attack. So every time you attack, you can do this just as long as you have one of these cards. Some of these cards actually say exhaust this card when you would suffer any amount of damage. So basically when you do this, I like to call it tapping, like in Magic. You tap the card, and you're not allowed to use that card again till the next round when you untap everything. I'm pretty sure everyone's used to those rules when you untap the card at the start of your turn. So some of these cards you have to exhaust, like they're a one-time use until the next turn. Sometimes that's a little arrow means that it's a special action to do that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So like I said, you're going to pick one of the characters of the 3, and then you're going to select one of the 2 character classes to start the game with. The options are going to be the same for every team, and this is where it's really going to come down to how the team decides what's best. When it's the hero's turn to play, we are going to be able to decide which order all the players get to take their turn. Now, at the beginning of someone's turn, they're going to be able to untap all of their exhausted cards from the previous round. And then they're going to be able to pick 2 out of 7 actions that you can choose from. Those are moving, opening doors, searching for treasure, attacking an enemy, resting, which allows you to get your stamina back, picking up a fallen comrade, or standing up yourself if you were knocked out. So let's go into a little bit further in depth on each one of those.
So going back to movement, each character has a total number of movement points. So if we take a look here at Sir Valadier, he has 4 movement points that he gets for movement. So for every action, he'll be able to move 4 spaces. And again, all these actions you're allowed to do 2 in 1 turn. So if he really wanted to run, he could spend 2 actions to get 8 points of movement and move a total of 8 spaces on his turn. What's good about movement points is if you spend 1 action and he gets 4 points, he's allowed to spend those 4 points during any part of his turn. So if he wanted to, say, move 1 space and perform an attack, he would then have 3 remaining movement points to use after his attack. The second action is opening a door. So if he is next to a door space, he can spend an action to remove that from the board or reclose it. In the campaign that we're playing, you're not allowed to open a door until a specific objective is completed, and we'll get to that. The third action is searching for treasure. So these little icons or tokens on the board represent search points or treasure chests. If you're next to or on a treasure chest, you spend an action to search, and you're going to draw one of these search cards. Let's see what we have on here. We have different cards that help you give you armor on your turn. You have different types of potions, stamina potions, healing potions, strictly some actual like grenades or like a fire flask that you can throw. So these are very helpful that you'll find throughout the adventure. Attacking, we're going to leave for the end because that's one of the major things that you're going to be doing on your turn. But let's go to rest. That's another action. So again, on your card, this shows how much fatigue your character can use until he's spent. Again, these can be used for movement points. So say you want to move an extra space or 2, you can spend fatigue to move gain 1 extra movement point. Or you can use them to trigger some of your special abilities, or perform certain abilities that you might get, like that one costs one fatigue again to use. So if you rest, you'll be able to recover all of your stamina, so you'll get that back. If there's a fallen comrade next to you, you move next to their space, you would roll 2 red dice, okay, and that's the number of health that they'll receive, and you stand them up so they'll be able to perform on their turn. If you are knocked down and no one's around to help pick you up, you can spend your entire turn, so you don't get 2 actions, you actually spend your entire turn to stand up on your own, and again you would roll 2 red dice to do so. So now let's go back to the attacking. So let's just say Sir Valadier gets to go. He wants to go and attack this little cave spider over here. He would spend 1 turn to move, so he would get 4 movement points, but he only needs to move 2, and you can move diagonally in this game. You are not allowed to move through enemies. You can move through heroes or allies, but you cannot move through enemies, just so you know. So then he wants to perform an attack, so he's going to take one of his attack cards. So right here we have a Worn Great Sword. Okay, it's 2-handed, so you can only have one of these equipped. If you had certain items that had 1 hand here, maybe a regular sword and a shield, you could equip that. He would roll a blue and red die for his attack value, so you would gather those. Okay, and then if you take a look at this card, I think there's a special ability on here. Before rolling your attack dice, you may suffer 1 stamina to add 1 lightning bolt, which we call surges, to your attack result. So this is before his die. So let's go ahead and do that. So he would spend 1 stamina. So we're going to take a little stamina, put it on this guy. He would have 2 left over to use. We roll the dice. Let's see. Boom. Okay, so we have 4 damage. Okay, for every heart is 1 point of damage. Now it's a good thing that we used that stamina before, because we got to add one of those surges. And you take a look at the card that you're using, and it tells you you can spend 1 surge to add 1 damage. So this attack really did 5 damage to the spider. You're only allowed to use this ability once. So even if I got 2 or 3 surges, I could only use the surge once for every time it's listed on here. One golden rule that Chris and Gabe will be happy to hear, and I'm reminding them. There's always an ability to use one surge to recover one stamina. It's just a given. So whenever you want to do that, if you have, say I roll 2 surges, I would use one for the damage and another one to recover a stamina. It's just one golden rule that you can use. So I did 5 damage to the spider. Quickly we take a look here. Here's a monster card. The spider has 1 silver defense, so he would roll that die right here. See, he blocks 3 of it, so 5 minus 3 is 2 damage. So 2 damage on the spider. Spider has 5 health, so he would have 3 remaining. Now, if you were next to the spider, having Sir Valadier was next to the spider, he can perform 2 actions, 2 attacks if he wanted to kill the spider, which is just really powerful for the heroes. I know a lot of the monster cards cannot perform 2 attacks unless maybe they're a lieutenant or a special character. Range works is, if you notice on these die, certain one of these dice, there's numbers on here. So if you roll the total number that you are away from the character, then it's a hit. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. If I roll the 3 on here, it's a complete miss on the attack. Certain items allow you to use a surge on here to maybe add to your range, which is really helpful. The worst part about these dies, and you'll know, is this giant blue X or white X on the blue die. If you roll that, the attack is a complete miss, and you hate yourself because this happens a lot. So sorry about that. We're going to be running into that a lot. Something else that I want to point out on movement, we're going to backtrack a little bit. Like I said, it's 1 point to move. You can move diagonal. There's certain parts on this board, though. We can get a little closer look. Red spaces. Some of these spaces are red. Means that they're impassable terrain. So not only do they block line of sight, so you can't see through them. Say the spider was on the other side here. You couldn't attack him because you can't see him. You also cannot enter or move through an impassable terrain. Kind of makes sense. The other piece of terrain here that we might run into is water, designated by like blue squares here. It costs 2 movement points to enter a water space. So let's say it would be 1 movement point, 2, 3, 4 to get across. I'm pretty sure we're going to run into that as we play. We just covered all of the actions that a hero can do on their turn. One thing I want to point out next is 5 condition cards that could come up as we play, just to go over them briefly in case we do ever encounter them. The first one is Immobilize. Basically what this means is on your turn, if you become immobilized, you can't perform any move actions or suffer that fatigue to gain any movement points. At the end of your turn, you get to discard this immobilize. So basically for 1 turn, you just have to stay still. Poison and disease are almost the same thing. The start of your turn, you have to make a test, so either a strength test for poison or one of these like starburst tests for disease. And if you fail, basically you suffer 1 damage for poison or 1 stamina for disease. Hopefully at the beginning of your turn you pass your test so you can discard this. That's a good point to bring up now. Whenever you need to suffer stamina and say you're already at your max, let's say if you're a disease and you need to take a stamina and you had no more to take, you're already at your full, it then converts to actual damage. Pretty important thing I wanted to point out there. Burning, we probably won't run into in our game, but just in case, maybe we'll run into some weapons. I think, let's see if I get this in focus a little bit. You or a figure adjacent to you may perform an action to discard this card or token at the end of your turn. You and each friendly figure adjacent to you suffers 1 damage. So if you don't put out the Burning Man standing next to you, you and that person are going to take damage. Makes sense. This is probably one of the most common ones. This is Stun. This is pretty powerful. Basically, it forces you to, as an action, discard this card. So you can't do anything. You can't perform a move, a stand-up, a pick-up, attack. You can't do anything until you spend 1 action to get rid of this Stun card. Once all the heroes activate, then it's going to be the Overlord's turn. Overlord, the main bad guy, the person who controls all the bad guys that we're going to be fighting throughout. It's going to be this tracker is which we have to keep our eye on. This is the Overlord track. This is what's called Fate up here, this token, and this is what's called Doom down here. Now, as we play through, Fate's going to be creeping down. It's kind of like a timer, and Doom is going to go up based on whenever, say, a hero dies or falls down. This Doom tracker goes up. If you fail certain tasks, it goes up. And if ever Fate and Doom land on the same space, it's game over for the hero. Okay, Doom can never go back down, but there are ways to refresh Fate and bring it back up to the top. So let's take a second. This is what's called a exploration card, and this is the first exploration card that we both are going to start the game with, and it explains a little bit about, let's say, whatever tile we're starting on. It's going to tell us what bad guys are going to be on that space, and if there's any special encounters that we're going to run into, and how we beat the exploration card. So this one is Beyond the Fringes. Cave spiders do not block line of sight during the Goblin Archer's activation. Each hero that ends his turn in a water space or action or adjacent to 2 or more water spaces is automatically poisoned. Now, in order to get rid of this card, it also tells you if there are no monsters on the map, refresh Fate. So we're going to bring Fate back all the way up to the top of the tracker and discard this exploration card. Now, at the bottom of this card, there's some flavored text that Ricky's going to read in our game because he gets into it a lot. And at the bottom here, there's a timer. So whenever it's the Overlord's turn and this is in play, you put a token on here. Once there's 3 tokens for this card on here, this activates. Advance Doom by 1, then discard this exploration card. So basically, we have 3 rounds to get rid of this card. If we don't, Doom goes up, and it's just that much harder for us to win the entire quest. Now, if there's no exploration card in play, okay, we got rid of it, whether we kill the monsters or we ran out of time. If there's nothing in play and it's the Overlord's turn, then we have to draw what's called a peril card. Okay, these are bad. I don't think there's anything good in these, but I didn't go ahead and read them. But from last time I remember, I think they were all bad. They're usually divided into two sections, a top and a bottom. If it's not divided, then we just do the entire card no matter what. But if there are not monsters on the board, we resolve the top portion. Okay. If there are monsters still on the board, we resolve the bottom portion. Okay, pretty simple. Never let Fate and Doom cross, or it's game over. There are 4 bad guys or species that we're going to be playing in this adventure. Okay, those are Goblin Archers, Cave Spiders, these things called Myriads, and Ettins, which are kind of like 2-headed ogres. They all start as level 1. Okay, there's 2 versions of these guys, and as we progress throughout the campaign, I think it's after we beat the 2nd level, then they go to level 2 cards, so they all get stronger and they have more health. So let's just take a quick look at each one of these cards, if there's any special abilities. At the top, it shows their movement points, how much health they have, what armor die they roll. Then they show Scamper, Cowardly. They can use 2 things for surges, which is +1 range and +1 damage. And this is the dice that they roll when they attack. So these are the Goblin Archers. Scamper, I think, means they can move through spaces containing heroes. And Cowardly, the monster cannot spend its surges on abilities unless it is within 3 spaces of any master, monster, or lieutenant. Now, a master monster is at the bottom of this card. Top version is like the regular normal guys. They're these white versions, and then the bottom of the card is for the red version. So these are the master monsters. They might have a little bit more health, their skills a little bit better, and that's for each one of these bad guys. So those are the Goblin Archers. They're ranged attacks. Cave Spiders are melee attacks. They can cause poison, they can do +1 damage. They can do web, which I believe makes you immobilize. Each hero adjacent to this monster must suffer 1 stamina to move out of its current space. This is in addition to any other stamina suffer to move. So basically it's causing them to spend stamina to get out of the space next to a cave spider. These guys, which I've never really heard before, they have reach, which is pretty important. They can attack 2 spaces away with melee. That's what reach does. And heroes might be able to get items too that allow them to have reach. They can cause us to be immobilized. They have a black die for defense, so they're pretty strong. Blue and a red die, they're pretty tough in melee. And flail for a master Myriad. Flail allows them to perform, I believe, when attacking, this monster may target 2 separate heroes. This monster makes 1 attack roll, and each hero rolls separate defense dice. They can attack 2 different guys for 1 action, which is pretty tough. Final guys here, the Ettins. They have reach as well. They roll 2 silvers. Pretty tough in melee. And they can throw as an action, which, let's take a quick look here. Choose a hero adjacent to this monster. That hero must test their strength. If he fails, remove the hero from the map, then place him on any empty space within 3 spaces of his original space. He counts as entering that space, and then he suffers 1 wound. Now, how these monsters attack on their own and move comes down to this monster card, this monster activation card. So once the Overlord goes, they go through their tracker. We resolve any of the abilities on the exploration card or the peril card if this isn't in play. Then we draw one of these monster cards. And it breaks down what monsters activate in which order. Okay? And it also tells them if there's any special abilities. So I think this here, like the goblins do extra damage. They have that special ability this round. And then it gives a whole set of parameters, which I'll go over as I'm running the game, how they actually activate. So let's just say, for example, these goblins right here. The red text means that any master goblins will do this. They spend the first action, they spot the closest hero, which means that they will move if they don't already see a hero. They spot the closest one, and they attack the closest hero in line of sight. Okay. If they can't perform those steps, they go back to the top. So spot the closest hero is the first action. They still can't see someone in line of sight. They go back to the top to spot the closest hero again. Maybe they have to perform 2 moves and they don't get an action. I think the same thing with the regular guys. It's the same one. Move and then attack. These Ettins here, they get a special power. They gain +1 speed if they're in a certain encounter. Engage the furthest hero. So even if you're the mage and you're standing in the back, these Ettins will go specifically towards the furthest hero from them and attack the hero who has the lowest speed within 2 spaces. So not only will they move towards the furthest guy, that doesn't mean that's who they're actually going to attack. Then they attack the hero who has the lowest speed within 2 spaces. If there's no hero within 2 spaces, again, they go back to the top. So it's a whole bunch of set of parameters. Spotting a hero, getting in line of sight, maybe moving away, attacking with range. So we draw one of these cards, and we just perform what they say on here. Like I mentioned before, this adventure could be quite difficult. I know the first one was. But luckily enough, we're going to be able to find treasure and items as we go throughout the adventure, and we kill monsters. That's really how you find loot in the game. It all takes place on this tracker here. Okay, starting at the bottom, you put your little heart here. I think it starts off the board actually, and I'll double check before we actually play. But every time you kill a monster, you take note on what size base they are. So this spider takes up 1 space on the board. Every time you kill a spider, you move up the tracker 1 space. Okay. If you kill one of the guys that take up 4 spaces, likewise, you move it up 4 spaces on the tracker. Whenever you get to the very top in our game, the 6th space, then you draw cards equal to the other part on this tracker. Okay, so it starts at 1 card right here. You draw 1 treasure card, and you can give that immediately to any one of the heroes to equip. You can move this tracker up every time you kill a master monster. So every time you kill one of these red guys, this little stamina will move up. So here's 4 treasure cards. Whenever you get to the six hearts, we would be able to distribute 4 treasure cards to any of the heroes right away. Once that happens, everything resets back to 0 and 1, and we begin again. The other thing that's going to be able to help us is looks like we have an NPC that's going to be running along with us in this campaign. Desmond here. He's got 4 movement. He has 10 health. I think that's a black die. Yep, for defense. And Desmond can activate after any other hero in the party goes. So we can choose when we're going to have Desmond go. It's just he can't be the very first one. He cannot perform 2 actions on his turn, just like us. What he can do is perform 1 movement, and then his special ability on here, which is, as an action, choose 1 hero within 2 spaces of you. That hero recovers 1 health. So basically he runs around and he's a healer. Bad news is he can be attacked just like any other hero, and when he quote-unquote dies or faints, he falls down and we have to pick him up. But every time he falls down, the Doom Tracker goes up. So just someone else that we have to protect, but he's around to help us throughout this incredibly hard adventure. I'm saying it's hard. Hopefully it is. Hopefully it's not really easy, and I seem like a sucker. But I think we're gonna do good. So as a final recap, we are going into this dungeon together with 4 heroes. We're going to pick 1 hero out of 3 character choices. Then we're going to select one of the 2 classes we're going to be. We all start in the same first level room, which is Beyond the Fringes. Whenever you complete one of these tasks, these exploration cards, they come off the board, and you can advance to the next room by opening the door and pulling another card. The dungeon layout is going to be the exact same for both teams. We're going to see who gets the furthest, and that's going to be actually the overall winner. Ways that we're going to get points in this game is there's going to be 3 main levels in this dungeon. Every time a team completes a dungeon, they're going to get points. They're going to get smaller points for the first one, mediocre for the middle, and the final tier, if we beat that, the team's going to get bonus points for that. And both teams have the availability, or have the option to do that. Whatever team gets the furthest are then actually going to get the overall winning points of the game. So if one team doesn't complete the first mission or the first level and the other team beats all 3, they are going to get buco points and do really well in this. If there happens to be a tie, it's going to come down to how far your Doom Tracker moved up, how close you are to losing. And if that is a tie, I'm going to have to come up with something beforehand, before we actually start playing. And I'll say that for our first team, which should be this Wednesday night. It's going to be myself, Chris, Ricky, and Doug. And then we will schedule a time for Sarah, Gabe, Braden, and Andrea to play. Hopefully everyone enjoys this game. It should be difficult, but it should be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys, for listening to this. I know it was kind of rushed, a last-minute thing at the end, but hopefully I can post it on Facebook and everyone takes some time to take a look at it. And yeah, hopefully this is a good thing, and I'd like to do more in the future. Thanks.